Hey guys, I decided to do another video because I didn't feel like writing 3 paragraphs. I promise this one will be 11 minutes this time. So sorry about the last time. So let's just dive right in. So out of all the reenactments of Shakespeare's Hamlet, the one that resonated with me the most was the very first one from 1948. I think there were a lot of really smart directing choices that went into this film, despite it being the oldest of the bunch. The first thing that stuck out to me was the setting itself. So I have never read the entirety of Hamlet. I haven't even read a portion of Hamlet myself. So I'm not sure exactly where this scene was set to take place by Shakespeare. This soliloquy spurred many different locations across the interpretations. No two were alike. They were all very diverse. The director of my favorite retelling used a location that was symbolic by nature, though, and that's what I really liked about it. So here, Hamlet is seen on the edge of a cliff looking down into the abyss of crashing waves and certain death. So the cliff symbolizes the edge of life and death, quite literally. So Hamlet is contemplating whether it'd be easier to die and escape life's problems or continue fighting them to no avail. The cliff is a literal representation of this struggle and decision that he is faced with. So if he truly wanted to, he could just end it all right there and then by just throwing himself off the cliff, which I think is kind of interesting because he is literally on the cliff, on the edge of life and death, but he also pulls out a knife. So he could end himself if he wanted to with the knife or off the cliff. I almost feel like the two different ways of death are kind of unnecessary, but then again, I don't know the play, so I'm probably completely wrong. The other clips aren't as symbolic, I would say. They kind of just show him walking around in dark rooms and such, but not literally being faced with death. So another thing that I really liked about this clip was that the mood was set very well, in my opinion, compared to the other ones. This was the only clip that contained music, and I think that made all the difference, really. You guys know I'm a big music geek. That's so cheesy to say, but I love analyzing that kind of stuff. So the clip opens up in an introduction by paneling throughout the setting while playing music over top of it. In my opinion, I feel like music is essential in setting any mood and really sound just in general. So comparatively, the other clips were completely silent and had the soliloquy over top of it, which would be influential as a whole if the silence of the scene was contrasted to the noise and sound of other scenes. But then again, we don't know because this is the only clip we're seeing, the only small portion of a larger picture, you know. There's no way to know. So not having a preview into these scenes, I think the music really works in this one. Think of a scary movie. So, particularly watching a scary movie with the sound off. Is it still scary? Probably not. So, the sound is what causes us to jump, which is arguably the biggest aspect of a scary movie. So, similarly, here, the music is the biggest aspect of the scene, in my opinion. It's eerie, almost chaotic, fast paced, frantic. You know, I could spend the whole time just analyzing this piece, but I will say that the change of pace in the music, especially, is really essential to setting the mood here. It begins really fast and kind of slows into the soliloquy, but then off the bat, it's a lot to take in. If anxiety was a song, this would be it. Other aspects of setting the mood that I really thought were important were the lighting. I thought that the black and white, even though technically they didn't have color, so it wasn't really a matter of choice. It's just kind of what they were given or what they were stuck with. But I kind of thought it set a very eerie tone overall and kind of was perfect for the overall dark message of the soliloquy. So it's also important to know that in the very end, Hamlet walks directly into the fog. So I thought the fog was a really important setting choice because fog symbolizes a haziness and an uncertainty, prompting that he probably never comes to a consensus on these troubles and is still lost and confused, even or as lost and confused as he was when he first began the soliloquy. So there is no enlightening moment. He's just speaking his mind. There's no like resolution at all. It's just problem, talks about the problem, still an existing problem, and the fog symbolizes that. So the very last thing that I want to talk about that really stuck out to me during this scene was how the dialogue switched between being external to internal. So when Hamlet discusses his unconscious mind at 1:45, which is the time, it is represented in the form of a voiceover to demonstrate his inner turmoil. Also, the fact that he was discussing what he was thinking in the form of thought was an interesting directing choice. As far as I know, this is the only clip that does something like that. At first, I thought it was a mistake, but if you follow along with the text, it makes sense that those specific lines of what he was saying were represented internally. The line, it changes as it occurs, just as he pulls out a knife. So he says, it's the line that's to die, to sleep no more. So this speech juxtaposes sleep, or like this portion of the soliloquy, juxtaposes sleep and death because you can only sleep when you're alive. Although being asleep is almost like being dead in a physical sense because it's unknown, uncontrollable. You're just kind of stuck there. The actor does a really good job at showing how painful this line is also. So painful that it can't even be said out loud in a sense. It is only represented in thought. He keeps discussing sleep in his voiceover, and his tone changes so suddenly. It's almost like a jump scare how it happens. So like right when it switches from internal back to external, like there's this frantic music that starts playing and it like zooms in on his face. It's kind of scary. This sudden change represents the instability of Hamlet and his mind. His entire demeanor flips like a switch, almost like he kind of has like a bipolar aspect to himself. He goes from sulking, looking like he's going to pass out and literally die right then and there, to jumping up with sudden intensity from nowhere. So these quick changes are what elucidate how he's literally on the edge, both literally and metaphorically. I also want to note that the position he's in during the scene, just because I thought it was kind of funny. If you notice, he's sitting on this rock, but the actor couldn't look more uncomfortable in the position that he's sitting. Just I'll try to insert a picture, but everything about his body posture looks uncomfortable, which kind of follows perfectly in with the script, whether it was intended or not intended. Just like follows perfectly in with how unsettled Hamlet is in the play itself. And that is all I have for you. I bet you're glad this was not 11 minutes this time. Um, like I said before, I thought this clip was executed better than the rest of them. I know we aren't supposed to pick a favorite, but this one's my favorite. Don't tell anyone. But I think all of them did a really good job. I actually enjoyed the older ones more than the modern ones, which is kind of interesting. I just think that, I mean, older movies incorporate more of the music and more of the traditional tone setting approaches that modern material does. So I think I appreciate that in general more than modern stuff. So I don't have a legitimate ending to this. So thanks for watching.